the reason that I wanted to research this topic was because I feel like it's a very important, in today's day and age, that the environment is something that everybody should be worried about. And I think that Norman has taken a really great initiative in trying to work towards becoming a more sustainable community, and I wanted to see how other communities were acting on that. So first off, we're going to start off with energy sources. You can go to the next slide. Energy production altogether accounts for 53% of the global greenhouse emissions, making it the largest source of emissions worldwide. This is talking about fossil fuels, gas, diesel, and whenever we talk about energy production, that includes both transportation and electricity. So it is obviously a very essential part of our society, and it's not something that we can altogether eliminate. So we're looking at sustainable alternatives that, it looks like it's cut off, but we're looking at sustainable alternatives that can make our energy more renewable and clean and produce less of this. So you can go to the next slide. So as I said, you can see that it accounts for 54%, and the most of that is transportation, which I'll get into later, but then after that is electric power. So solar energy is what we're going to start off with, and I'm sure that everybody here knows what solar energy is, but it's a renewable power source that's obtained through solar panels that operate by converting the sunlight into electricity. It's also very affordable, although it wouldn't be very affordable to install it. It's very affordable to produce and keep up. And it emits zero greenhouse gases while operating. And they're also very recyclable. You can go to the next slide. So as for Norman, sorry, I have my notes on my phone. So as for Norman, we have seen some development in solar panels, but we are only seeing it from the city. And so it's going into these city-operated buildings such as schools or water facilities. This one on the left is the water treatment facility. No, that's the water reclamation facility, and that's the water treatment facility. So as you can see here, they partnered with solar panel contractors, and they installed it for these water facilities just to kind of help with energy production while maintaining the lack of waterways. And it has displaced over 2,600 metric tons of CO2 equivalent emissions per year, providing 438 homes with electricity or 271,000 gallons of gas. That is enough to break a car. And for an entire year. So I don't know if, no, it's not on there. But as I said, the city of Norman put out a mission to make it so that all of the government buildings had some sort of sustainable energy, whether that be from, I don't know, you can go to the next slide. So as I said, that also includes schools. So Norman North High School is actually 100% powered by solar energy. And you can see this solar panel right here. It's off of I-35 and I can't remember the crossroad, but it's off the highway. And I believe that is the one that goes directly to Norman North. And all three of these have some relation to Norman Public Schools. So they actually cooperated with Oklahoma Electric Cooperation in 2024. They have 15 acres of solar panels that all together has 2 megawatts of solar energy. They also have provided access to this for students because they wanted to take this as an opportunity to teach more about solar energy and renewable and sustainable energy. And they also wanted to increase access to low-income families. So you can go next slide. So as I said, they're trying to make it more accessible to more people, but only about 500 of 600 accounts with Oklahoma Electricity Corporation have solar at their homes. And whenever I asked a sample at my school if they had solar at their homes, I only received this response of 2 people who said that they had solar panels in their homes. You can go to the next. So while we have that, we also have a pretty well accomplished, as a city, we are pretty well accomplished in our energy renewability. And so you can see here that, these are so little, these have actually to do with our homes and with what we have produced as a community. But as, a win is a win. So as a town, we're able to see that we have these resolutions, and we've adopted the Ready for 100 resolution, which means going 100% net zero by 2030. And that's another reason why they dedicated so much time and energy towards the solar. So, you can go next. So, as for Beauvais, they actually just recently installed these solar panels with Herb Solar, and this is the largest solar panel farm in France, and it's right in Beauvais. So it covers almost 62,000 meters of roof space, and it has a total output of 12.8 megawatts, and it produces around 12,737 megawatts a year, equivalent to the annual electricity consumption of almost 3,000 households. This is on, I believe, an Amazon warehouse. But my question for this was, okay, so we have this huge solar panel farm, but where is this energy going? Is this like Norman, where it's going to these private practices, or is it providing for the people? Because in Norman, while we tried to, expand and add on to our production of solar power, it's only going within our own private spaces. But this is going straight to the national grid, so this power is going straight back to the people's homes. You can go to the next slide. So, as I said, you can see that here, and they have goals to expand this also to wind power, which I'm about to get into. And I believe that this is from the Beauvais website. So the goal is to reach an installed capacity greater than 100 gigawatts by 2050. And so that's kind of similar to our Ready for 100 initiative. You can go to the next slide. So as for windmills, my host family lived around 40 minutes away from Beauvais in Saint-Puy. And we took a drive every day all the way back to our house, and we had to drive through the countryside. And I saw countless windmills. And that's not even counting the ones that are offshore in Beauvais, which is more than I can describe. But we see so many of these windmills, and these are put there by Total Energies, which have provided enough offshore and onshore windmills to supply power for almost 3 million French homes. So they have gone really above and beyond for that. And they actually recently made a deal with President Trump, which I thought was strange that they chose a French company, but they made a deal with President Trump to do more offshore wind farms, but for American power. You can go to the next slide now. So now we're going to go on to waste management. You can go to the next slide, I think. Okay, actually, sorry. Now we're going to go on to waste management. Waste management is very relevant also because pollution in any way, source, form, whether it's air, trash, plastics, it affects our natural ecosystem and it affects wildlife, and that is a very crucial part of our environment. And so diminishing that and diminishing any sort of waste like that is very important. So as for Norman, we are provided monthly with a curbside recycling and trash. It's only $300, oh my goodness, it's only $3 extra a month. So it's relatively affordable. It's not like it's inaccessible for people. However, I do believe that this isn't available for some rural homes. So you can go to the next slide. So we have 3 recycling centers in Norman, which are sections like that. And you can find information on the Norman website on what to recycle, how to recycle, the guidelines for recycling. And if you want to go to the next slide, these are skewed pretty evenly around town so that people have access to it. Obviously, this isn't counting the more rural areas of Norman, but they are pretty equally distributed around town, and they are free to use for anybody. You can go to the next slide. However, whenever I asked the sample at my school about it, I received the answer that while most people had a recycling bin, not as many people use the recycling bin. Or, even the people who, because you can see here, 22.6% said that they did not, but only 14.5% said that they didn't recycle at all. So we can still see that people are probably sorting, their trash and still going through that process, even though it's not so accessible as it would be to other people. You can go to the next slide. So as for our accomplishments in recycling, we have mandatory curbside recycling, and that has decreased waste by 23%. We have the recycling drop-off centers, as I mentioned. We have compost in Norman, and we have information on composting also, which is something I saw similar in Beauvais. And we also have the seasonal cleanups, which is like Big Trash Day. So you can go to the next slide. Now, as for Beauvais, they have 2 recycling centers, but this is actually part of the agglomeration of Beauvais. So these 2 are not actually in the town, and I'll go more into the agglomeration later, but they are still accessible, and they also provide information on how to recycle, what is able to be recycled here. So you can go to the next slide. So while in Beauvais, it was actually a big joke with all the other fellows that everywhere we went, I was taking a photo of a trash can, and our host students were like, "Has she never seen a trash can before? Do you guys not have that in America?" But I noticed that while in public, almost everywhere I went had a recycling bin or somewhere they could sort. And I wasn't able to get a photo of it because phones weren't allowed there. But even in the school cafeteria, they had it was sorted in the way that you can do waste, plastic. I don't know what the other one was, but so I saw that almost everywhere. And I also noticed that in classrooms, they would typically have a paper recycling bin because their assignments were solely paper. So we can see that in Norman. We can see that on campus specifically, where they'll have the different containers, like one for recycling, one in public, but we don't see that as often as I saw it there. So you can go to the next slide. I also noticed this is in the town square of Beauvais, and they had these three, and then instructions on the side of each of what is supposed to go in there, and they were all, organized properly. I saw many things like this while we were there, like different sorts of recycling bins or trash cans, which I guess is why I wanted to take photos of it. But because you just will typically see, if you're going to see an additional recycling bin, then it's just going to be to the side of it. It's not going to be like a structure, if that makes sense. You can go to the next slide. So, transportation. You can go to the next slide. That accounts for the other 29% of the energy production. And as you can see, this is the biggest producer of the greenhouse gases. So, an alternative for this is electric vehicles or public transportation or scooters or bicycles, things that don't, because if you're taking a bus, then obviously that is still going to emit those gases, but it's not going to produce as much as if every single person was driving one. And it does face the issue of diesel and all of that stuff, but we're seeing a lot more production in natural gas vehicles and electric vehicles, so you can carry on the next slide. So Norman has a walk score of 31, and that's out of 100. So it is almost entirely car dependent. So we can't really see so many of these alternatives we're not seeing so many of these alternatives where you can go around by bike or walk. And in Beauvais, so many people asked me after the trip what my favorite part of France was, and I always said the urban planning because it was so walkable, and you can basically go anywhere from the high school or the main town. And so we really do not see that in Norman. And while we do have a bus system, and our bus system is fare free, so it's fairly accessible for everybody, this is our bus map, and as you can see, not very many stops, and our buses are not in very good condition either. We also have these electric scooters that are, I don't know if they're provided by Norman, but I know that they're accounted for by the city of Norman. And we have the Norman On Demand program, which provides access to safe public transportation. That was created more as a safety thing for college students on weekend nights whenever other public transportation wouldn't be as available. You can go to the next slide. However, even though we have those alternatives, whenever asked at school how many people use public transportation, we saw pretty skewed results, but the three top answers were rarely, very rarely, and never. So we really do not see that at all in Norman. You can carry on to the next slide. As for our accomplishments in this though, we have a fuel conservation policy, an alternative fuel program, we have a compressed natural gas fuel facility, which is over by the airport, I believe. And most of our buses are ran by clean natural gas. Electric charging stations, transportation plans, bicycle advisory board, and it is a bike-friendly community, which doesn't make sense if it's not very walkable, but you can carry on. You can go to the next slide. So as for Beauvais, this is a horrible photo of the map, but this is the only one that I could find. I took this whenever I went and visited the agglomeration, and this is all I could find. There's not a copy of this, but you can see the difference in our bus maps from Norman versus the bus maps for Beauvais. It goes a lot more places, and I actually got the opportunity to ride the bus with that in Whittington, and it was in pretty good condition, and we saw that a lot of people actually use the bus. But when it comes to sustainable transportation, I saw the most in my research that cycling. I saw quite a few cyclers while I was there, and the agglomeration actually has a lot of support for the cyclers, and they have initiated a bunch of opportunities for people to get more involved in cycling and enjoy it more, and have more access to the resources that they need to cycle. Next slide. So as for community efforts, I could have made a whole research project on this in itself because there was so much. So this is very, very condensed. But as for Norman, we have a program called Green Norman, which helps in educating people on eco-friendly initiatives and ways that you can act yourself, and educating them on waste management, pollution, water conservation. And we also have projects like the Clean Norman Project, the Clean Neighborhood Project, where you can call up the city of Norman. They will send you supplies, and I think it says it up there. They'll send you supplies and something else, but they provide for it so that you are able to clean up any area that you want. You just have to give them a little bit of notice. And then Relief Norman, which is an effort to replant trees in Norman. And then as you can see here, they have information about events that they have, all different like celebrations or information sessions. And a couple weeks ago, I actually visited one of these, and I went to a park cleanup at Reeves, and I got to speak with one of the representatives. And they just told me that they were very proud of all that they've done for Green Norman and for bringing that to the community. So you can go to the next slide. They also are able to provide a lot of resources and information on sustainability on the website. And so they kind of provide tips on anti-pollution, water conservation, energy conservation, recycling tips, and composting. So as for our accomplishments, again, a lot. We have the Climate Protection Agreement, water conservation, water ordinance, fuel sanitation, I could go on and on. Public education, that's another big thing with Green Norman, is educating people on the importance of it. So you can go to the next slide. So as for the agglomeration community, I actually had the opportunity to speak with a representative from it. So they have 17 objectives of sustainable development, and the agglomeration community actually is not just strictly Beauvais. It has, I believe it was 53 different communes that they manage, and so that's with government, that's with environment, that's with transportation, and they all kind of fall under that same thing. So I got to speak with a representative, and she explained to me about their water filtration system, I believe, and their water conservation, as well as their waste cycle and just the way that they manage it, and as well as their sustainable objectives. So you can go to the next slide. They have a program known as the PLT-DMA, and it is essentially a program to prevent household waste and minimize that. So they have 5 different objectives. It's awareness raising, eco-exemplarity, and business waste, increasing product lifespan, responsible consumption, and food waste and bio-waste. And so they've done this by providing a lot of accessible information about how to recycle or how to reuse, encouraging people to reuse things and remake things before they actually dispose of it, and as well as providing adequate access to, I'm trying to find the words, adequate access to the opportunities to find these things. You can go to the next. So as for the resources and information on their website, they have a lot of information on waste prevention, and that includes composting and how to compost, how to recycle, how to DIY, how to turn things into something else before you throw them away, and also the biodiversity in Beauvais, and how to combat human activity while, maybe not combat, but how to still participate in human activity while keeping the biodiversity safe. So in conclusion, I found that both of our communities have a lot of initiatives towards making people educated on the importance of environmental consciousness, and we also both we both separately have made a lot of effort towards waste management, water conservation, sustainable and renewable energy, and we are still working towards that, both separately. And I found that a lot of people in our community both see the importance in this because of the opportunities that our towns have provided. So if anyone has any questions, then I'll take that now.